Hi and welcome to episode 13. In this episode we will do some additional stuff with our shader. But first, in your game manager.cpp, in your get game manager static method, let's add one more hint. So right before we create the window, let's type glf window hint, and our hint will be glf underscore samples, and our second argument will be 16. This is basically the amount of samples Pulse or OpenGL should take while rendering. So to illustrate this, if you run our app now, you can see that our square, or our cube, has nice smooth lines and borders. I changed the camera, by the way, a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. Now if we remove this, so if we comment this line out, you can see our lines aren't so smooth. You can play around with the actual value, but 16 should be enough. Okay, next up, move to our shader, and in our shader interface we already have a uniform variable, a variable set up to store a uniform location. So let's create one, and this basically will be our hue color. And if you guessed it, we will use this uniform to store it, to store the actual color. So, and you take this line and you replace it with hue color. Then let's add one more uniform, and you can call this uniform vector 3, and you can name this underscore light position. Make sure it's a U, and you can then simply take this and replace it. So U light position. Okay. Next up, our shader interface.h. So now let's add our new variable in here. So underscore U light position. Now let's create the getter. So gl int get underscore hue light position. Okay, now let's move on to our implementation. So it's a CEP file, and then let's implement our new method. So shader interface get underscore light position, and return underscore hue light position. And that was actually created. So it's actually created now. Okay, in our constructor, underscore u light position equals gl get uniform location shader get program handle, and make sure to get this right. U light position. Okay. Now create a new header file and a CVP file. Next, and you can name this vector 4, which you guessed it will simply be like our vector 3, but now with 4 components. And we can use these 4 components to store, for example, our color. So type def struct, and you can name this simply vector 4. Okay, make sure to include glf/glf3, and then simply do GL float x. Oh god. And I messed this up. 1 second. Okay. Yeah. So GL float. So for 4 components. So this will be y, c, and the last one will be v. So w. Also, let's create a method. A function. And this will return a vector 4, and you can name this simply make vector 4, and it will take 4 arguments. So and you can guess what the arguments will be. This is simply a convenience method which will help us with creating such structures. And GL float v. Okay. Oh, let me start this float. Okay. Then in our implementation file, let's implement this. Oh god. Okay. So simply do vector 4, new vector dot x equals x, new vector dot y equals y, new vector dot c equals c, and new vector dot y equals x, not v. Of course it's v, w, and then simply return the new vector. Okay, like this. Alright, now let's create one more, and we'll do it like this for now. We may change our approach in the future on this, but you can create another class, and you can simply name this shader data. So yeah, so make sure you create a .cpp file and .h file. Then in the .h include what's it called? glf/glf3.h and class shader data, and it will have a couple of privates. So private. For now, this will only have 2 privates, and those will be GL. Yes, those will simply be. And before we continue, also include vector 3.h and include vector 4.h, and we will have 2 private. Vector 4 will be the u color value, and vector 3 will be our u position. Make sure to underscore them like always. For now we have only 2, but in the future we'll add some more. And then public, so we have our setters, so vector 3 get underscore hue color value, and void, and it's a vector for the color, set underscore hue color value, and inside simply do vector for new color, and I'll simply replace this, simply copy this, make sure to add the parentheses by the way, and I'll simply change this to get light position and a vector 3, and then set underscore view light position vector 3 new position. Okay, so now also let's create our destructor and constructor. So simply type shader data and our destructor shader data. Okay, now the implementation, or actually do this, simply do vector 4 and you can do new color inside of here, and vector 3 new position. Okay, now our implementation. So here is the implementation. Simply create the header, the getters and setters, and simply initialize the variables with the data we provide in the constructor. Okay, now I'm not sure if we created this, but we didn't. In the vector3 header, I also create a similar method to the one in the vector4. So simply do vector3 make vector3 GL float x GL float y and GL float z. Now move on to the implementation. So vector3.cpp, which should be empty. Vector3 new vector dot x equals x, and you don't need the last one. So it's this in the element. Okay, now simply change this to y, oh shift, y, and z, and return the new vector. Very simple. Now let's take this and add this to our vertex buffer. So go to vertex buffer.h, include the new shader data class of h, and then simply do shader data pointer shader data, and then let's add it in our initializer list. So in our constructor, simply do shader data pointer underscore shader And all of our shader data will be probably unique, at least in the beginning. So okay, now first move on to your implementation, so your CP file, and let's actually add the new shader data in our constructor there. So shader data shader data. Oh, and shit, damn, come on. Move back to your header file and change this to normal name like this. Okay, then in your initialize list, simply do underscore shader data and shader data. Okay, now we've done this, then first go into your header file and create the constructor, the getter. So shader data pointer get shader data. Maybe a better name would be get shader uniform data, but no worries. Excuse me, error, that's no problem. Shader, got shader data pointer. It's called vertex buffer get shader data return underscore shader data. And why is it giving me this error here? Yes, it does. I think for now we can do it like this. In the structure we will actually no. Yes, no. Yeah, go to your render system and ignore this. Or actually, so here's our GL uniform 4F. And so what we will do is basically we will replace all of these arguments with get shader data, and then we will do this get underscore color value dot x, and then we'll replace all of the arguments with this basically, and it will look like this. And you can simply then do y, c, and b. Then you can copy all of this and get u light position. I mistyped it. That's okay. Get light position, and then replace all of this. So this will only be, of course, with 3. So replace the 3 here with a GL uniform 3F. Then remove the last line and the comma, and then simply change every U color to a U light position. Same here. And the U light position. Now, okay, and we are almost done. Now, last thing, go to your resource manager. include your shader data. So include shader data.h, and simply create a temporary storage place for this. So shader data. Then in the actual implementation, so our shader data will equal new shader data, and new, and then our first is our color, I think. So make, what was our position? I think it's our color. So a red one again, or yeah, red and yellow. So just make sure the last argument will be 1, so that the alpha is maximum, and make vector 3 for the position, and simply do 1, 1, and 1. Why not? Then insert this after every shader array at line, so right here will be fine. So shader data, and also here shader data, like this, and everything should be fine now. And this one, yeah, and don't forget to close the parentheses, and in our and then let's also delete it. So delete the shader data. Okay, and if we run this, it doesn't work. And at least I forgot in the vertex shader there to add a semicolon to the end of our new uniform vector 3 uline position variable. So please add that. And if you run this, it works. So we simply created some extra structures to help with setting our shaders. Okay, so next video we will create an entity class, and yeah, you'll see what that is then. So see you next time. Bye.